Representative Jones, got to start with you. Tell us how you feel at the end of this week.
Well, it's good to see you, Jonathan. It's definitely been a roller coaster of a week. And the book I just saw, we are in the midst of a third Reconstruction here in Tennessee. And so I'm hopeful, but I'm also, realizing that we are up against a system of white supremacy that is emboldened. So we're going to continue the movement here in the South and here in Tennessee.
And so, Representative Jones, I'm curious, and I'm sure everyone watching is curious. What kind of reception did you receive from the Republicans who voted to expel you in the Tennessee House this week?
Not a welcoming one. I think that they are upset, that they are feeling wounded. And one of them, we heard their leaked audio said he can't stand to see me walking these sacred hallways where the greats of Tennessee once stood. And so they are not happy. And so we're vigilant, but we're undetermined because they're not my constituents. They're not the people who sent me there. They're my colleagues. And so we're going to continue to do the people's work, regardless if they smile and wave at us or not.
So, Reverend Thompson, you were in Nashville for Representative Jones's reinstatement and in Memphis for Representative Pearson's reinstatement. Tell us what being there and watching those events meant to you.
First of all, thanks for having me. Good to see you, Jonathan. Good to see you as well, Brother Peniel. This has been an historic week, and I'm just getting to know Justin Pearson. But as I've said before, Justin Jones is like my little brother. He was baptized here in Nashville in the church of my childhood. Nashville's where I grew up. So I had to come down here to stand with my younger brother. Their fortitude in the midst of this has been tremendous. But as Peniel has documented as a somewhat of a biographer of Dr. King and Malcolm X, they were in their 20s, both Dr. King and Malcolm X, when they stepped out. That's kind of the way the things go. The church that Justin was baptized in was the home of the Nashville sit-in movement, with John Lewis and Diane Nash, Bernard Lafayette, and Marion Barry were in their 20s, and students, Harry Fisk, Tennessee State, American Baptist College. So this is a continuum of a tradition of young people standing up and also being called. They, 2 weeks ago, the two Justins didn't plan on having their names known internationally. But as we all know, sometimes what others mean for evil, God means for good. And this is precisely what has happened with the two Justins. I couldn't be prouder of them and what they stand for as well. There is unanimity around this country. I was at Morehouse yesterday at the Martin Luther King Chapel, where portraits were unveiled for the Reverend Jeremiah Wright to hang in the chapel, the Reverend Dr. Alva Carruthers, and the president of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. So I'm there with individuals who were white, who were Mormons, and they wanted to talk about what happened here in Nashville, and they wanted to talk about ending gun violence. So this is an opportunity for people of diverse faiths, diverse races, ethnic backgrounds, all of those categories, to come together to end this scourge in America of gun violence.
Well, Peniel Joseph, let me bring you into the conversation because Representative Jones invoked your name and your book, The Third Reconstruction, and you argue that America is living through a third Reconstruction. How do the events in Tennessee illustrate that?
Oh, certainly. Thank you for having me, Jonathan. Tennessee is really all about Reconstruction. When we go back to the 19th century, Tennessee is one of the pivotal states where Black folks really are reimagining American democracy. And the censoring of both of the Justins really recalls the Reconstruction period, both when in places like Nashville, even before Reconstruction in 1863, you had enslaved people who were reading aloud the Declaration of Independence in 1863. You had Black men and women in Nashville and Memphis and Chattanooga and Knoxville who were organizing mock ballots and mock voting in 1863 and 1864 and 1865. We have Black folks on plantations in Tennessee who are doing their own thing and actually creating crops and creating systems of work for themselves even before the Civil War ends. So Tennessee is one of the most important places for radical multiracial democracy in American history. When we think about this period of Reconstruction from 1865 to 1898, we have parallel movements, One is a Reconstructionist movement for multiracial democracy led by Black women and men, and the other is a redemptionist movement that we sometimes call the Lost Cause, where they're not only advocates of white supremacy, they rationalize injustice, they rationalize authoritarianism, they rationalize racial violence. What we're seeing in Tennessee in 2023 is both of those movements. We're seeing Reconstructionists, and both Justins and all the people who are supporting them are Reconstructionist supporters of multiracial democracy, but we're also seeing redemptionists. These are 21st century redemptionists who have a narrative of anti-democracy, of anti-Black racism, but it's a narrative that is filled with grievances. It's a narrative that justifies racial subjugation. It's a narrative that presents white people as really wounded warriors for American patriotism, but it's a patriotism that's an exclusive patriotism. It's not an inclusive, multiracial patriotism. So in many ways, what we're living through during this third Reconstruction, which the 4 pivot points are Barack Obama, Black Lives Matter 1.0 in 2013, MAGA and Trump in 2016. And since 2020, with George Floyd and Breonna Taylor, what we've seen are these striking juxtapositions, Jonathan, that are usually considered aberrations. We think about January 6th and the big lie as aberrations. They are not. They are juxtapositions. Just like Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson is not an aberration. She's a juxtaposition. The Biden-Harris administration, which is a Reconstructionist administration, is not an aberration. We can do two things at one time. So this country has always had dueling visions of American democracy. There's a duality to our country, a Janus face to our country. On the one hand, we are the country of 1619 Project and reimagining American democracy and anti-racism and racial justice, which includes white folks who are abolitionists, which includes Latinx folks who are abolitionists and queer folks who are abolitionists. But we are also the country of redemption and the lost cause, which wants to prevent Black people from reading in one Reconstruction period and wants to prevent us from teaching Black history in the third Reconstruction period. So we're doing both of these things at the same time, Jonathan, but I'm hopeful with what we're seeing in Tennessee that we can actually have that third Reconstruction where we build that beloved community. We have so many different people who are part of this, so many different clergy, so many different, Reverend William Barber is part of this, Kimberly Crenshaw is part of it, so many different folks who are standing in solidarity. And we are standing on the shoulders of Black folks in Tennessee, not just from the 1960s like Diane Nash, but from the 1860s and the 1870s. Right. It's important for us to give them shout outs and to say Nashville, Memphis, Knoxville, Chattanooga, but also rural parts of East and West and Northern and Southern Tennessee. They've been the bedrock of American democracy for over 160 years. And unless folks in Tennessee are free, not just emancipated, none of us are going to be free.
Well, you mentioned Reverend Barber. We're going to have Reverend Barber and Representative Jones on the Sunday show this Sunday. But Representative Jones, one more question to you before we have to go. You've already said that you'll be running for your seat again in a special election. Tell us about that process.
So they haven't announced the special election yet. And so until I am elected in that special election, the Speaker of the House is still refusing to put me back on committees like other members. And so right now, the people in my district are at a disadvantage. I'm not able to sit on the committees that I was sitting on. And so I'll be running in the special election when that is announced this summer. But one thing I want to note is that as we're talking here, Trump and the Tennessee Republican Party are right now having dinner here in Nashville. And so as we are talking about this vision of a multiracial democracy, we have people strategizing here in Nashville. How are they going to roll back and erode democracy even further? And so as we are here planning, we have to be vigilant as to the forces that are operating around us. They're meeting, talking about, what happened this week, talking about how they're going to try and move the optics and move the PR to refocus on whatever they want to focus on. But we have to continue to call out the racism that we saw exhibited in its most extreme form, the spectacle, that expulsion hearing, the treatment of Black members that continues today. We just passed a law to ban teaching Black history in colleges, talking about systemic racism in colleges. colleges just yesterday. And so we have to continue to challenge this rollback of democracy, this extremist white supremacist government under the leadership of Cameron Sexton, Speaker of the House, who needs to resign. And it's also, they're both racist and unethical. And so I'm going to run the special election. But more importantly than just me, it's not about me having a seat. It's about the 78,000 people in my district, one of the most diverse districts in Tennessee, whose voice was taken from them and who are still at a disadvantage because members like myself and Representative Pearson are not being placed on committees.